You're watching E.T.N. Share and subscribe.
Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. This is Rob. This video, we're finally going to do it. The review everybody's been waiting for. Shin Gojira review. Yes, I know a lot of you who are not part of the Nation Facebook page are curious as to how I am doing a review for this movie that has not been released yet here. However, to make a long story short, because I do want to get to the review, have a friend, met a little over 2 years ago, and this person at the time, I was basically recruited to audition for a reality TV show that was based on, basically they saw one of my conspiracy theory videos and they wanted my intake and they wanted me to audition. And to make a long story short, I made an acquaintance during that time, and they've remained an acquaintance since then. And this person also turned out to be a very big Godzilla fan, is involved in the entertainment industry, and unexpectedly, because I had no idea this was even coming, hooked me up with a way to see the movie. And I'm very grateful. Very, very grateful. And the person is anonymous. Nobody knows who he is anyway, because I've never really spoken about him, and I've never spoken about him to anybody else because at his request. The cool thing about this friendship that I've had with this person is that he's in the industry. He's always kind of giving me some information, and not that I can't, I was at times permitted to maybe scoop that information on a video. The problem is that he likes to remain anonymous, so I wouldn't be able to use his name. And if you've been on my channel for a while, you know that whenever there's been other videos that talk about this kind of stuff or talk about scoops and stuff like that, a lot of times they'll say something along the lines of, I have it from a reliable source, but I can't say the name. And I don't like that. I would have to say that if I would ever do it, and I just don't want to do it. But I just like the fun in knowing some of the things that I found out over the years regarding certain entertainment developments in the industry. So it's been fun, if nothing else, for me personally. So, but anyway, this was a great, great surprise, an early birthday gift. And I saw it almost a week ago now. I've seen it twice. And I've kind of been procrastinating on my review because, I was a little bit turned off at the reaction I got during my live stream when the trailer came out. And, obviously a lot of people who are in love with Godzilla or in love with Toho's interpretation of Godzilla, they don't like to hear anything negative about it. They don't like to hear anything bad. If it's Toho, it's gold. And I'm just not like that. I'm just not like that with anything, not just Godzilla, anything. So I was like, well, maybe I'll get a lot of backlash for this, but I'm just going to come straight out and be honest. So is this a bad Godzilla movie? No, it's not. It's definitely not a bad movie. I wouldn't put it down there with Godzilla's Revenge. I wouldn't put it down there with Son of Godzilla or Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster or any of the like. But I definitely wouldn't put it at the top list. I would say it's more in the middle of some of the Godzilla films. Here's the thing. And I'm going to talk about the story first. I'm not going to go into too much details. I don't want to give the plot away. I know there's some people watching this video who already know the plot, and I know there's some people watching this video who don't want to know the plot. So I figured it's best to avoid it, because if you know the plot already, then you know it, and if you don't know it, you won't get spoiled. But in essence, this is the first time Godzilla, story-wise, has touched down in Japan, and there's no indication of him in the past or none of that. So there's no connection to any of the other movies. This Godzilla is very different. He's very different. And it doesn't take long for the action to start. It doesn't. Pretty much quickly into the movie, he touches ground. If you've heard it by now, yes, he does have 3 forms. His first 2 forms are very primitive, so to speak. I don't like them too much. I'll be honest with you. It was kind of weird watching it because you do get a sense of dread. There's violence there. There's people getting crushed, buildings getting crushed. But it's so hard to get engrossed in that scene, or in the opening scene, or not the opening scene, but it's so hard to get engrossed in that scene when he first makes landfall, because he's kind of like hopping along and he's got these huge eyes. It looks goofy. It looks goofy. And there is some violence there in terms of he kind of bleeds out, and it's grotesque, but it's so goofy looking the way he looks in this form that it's hard to kind of be fearful. I mean, I literally laughed when I first saw him. It was just that ridiculous. And then that just kind of opens the floodgates to everything that you've already probably heard at this point. How the government deals with it, all these meetings, lots of dialogue, everything you're hearing is true. And I think, here's the thing, we all hear that it got great responses in Japan. And that's no surprise for a multitude of reasons. Number one, this story resonates with Japanese people because it really kind of ties in, or I don't want to say ties in, but it really draws inspiration from the events in 2011 with the tsunami and the earthquake and all that stuff. And because of that, I definitely can see why it hits home for the Japanese audience. The other reason is because Japanese, here in the United States, we have freedom of speech. We're very out there with what we say. Other countries, even if they have freedom of speech, which most countries don't, even if they do, they're not as outspoken as we are. Japan is no exception. They have freedom of speech, yes, but they're not going to come out there and just bash one of their own. You know what I mean? So it's not to say that the people that reviewed it didn't really enjoy it. I'm sure they did. But if it wasn't good, they wouldn't trash it, is what I'm saying. So I don't want to, again, I'm trying to kind of work around this here, because even though I know, based on what I saw, and I know people know things, I know there's probably people watching this that don't want to be spoiled, so I'm trying to work around. But here's what I'll do. People want to hear about the Godzilla stuff, so we'll get to that in a second. Let me just focus on the story a little bit and let you know my take on it. The story, obviously, like I said before, very much inspired by the 2011 events and the response of the government. It's very, very political, a lot of bureaucracy. I can't say that it was very entertaining. It was not. It's and it's not going to resonate with any audiences outside of Japan the way it's going to resonate with Japanese people. You could say it does, but I personally wouldn't believe anybody who says that, because, and I'll tell you why. What happened in Japan was very tragic. Us as human beings obviously react to that in such a way that we feel for them, we want to support them, and we know it's terrible watching it. Experiencing it is a completely different monster. And how they feel when experiencing it versus how we feel seeing it, two different worlds. That's why they're going to resonate with the movie a lot stronger than anyone outside of Japan. The second thing is because this movie doesn't really have that focal character that you can cling on to, get emotionally invested in, and root for. It doesn't have that. So the Japanese audience has the story to get emotionally wrapped in. We cannot get emotionally wrapped in the story because we were not there. We were not impacted the way they were. It's a different level. So we have to depend on characters to do that for us. There's no character in this movie that does that. As serious of a movie as it is, and as serious tone as it is, there's that missing hole, and that leads to boredom. Because then you have all these different characters jumping in and out, talking about this event, how they're going to deal with it, such and such, and you kind of get tossed around, and you don't have time to get invested. And it spends, and the only thing you do have to get invested in, if you're an audience from outside, is Godzilla. Godzilla is your investment. Like him or not, whether he's bad or evil, that's your investment. That's who you're there to see. You're not going to see a lot of them. And I'm not saying that as a complaint. Well, maybe I am, but I think for different reasons than the traditional, oh, he wasn't in the movie enough. Because everything outside of Godzilla just was not that entertaining. Yes, there's people talk about how Anno shot it, and there were great angles, there was great shooting, great editing, but that doesn't make the movie entertaining. It makes it more cohesive. I'm looking to be entertained on top of appreciating that cohesiveness. The cohesiveness, I mean, the entertainment factor was gone. Editing, yes, great. The angles and the shots that Anno used were fantastic, but there was no entertainment value there outside of Godzilla. So that's where you miss Godzilla more, because there's nothing outside of him that's drawing you in. There's no character. The story's very bland. So you're left with just waiting. And that's when you miss Godzilla, because you're like, oh my God, is he even in this movie? Even though you know, and myself, as a fan, that he was hardly in the movie in 54. He was hardly in the movie in 2014. He was hardly in it in some of his other movies, even Versus movies. He wouldn't come until the end. But you appreciate those movies for two reasons. Number one, either the story is really good, which in most cases the story is not, or there are other monsters to keep you company. Prime example, 2014, I understand where people are coming from. We're not seeing Godzilla enough. But if you didn't like the Muto, then that affected you more. Well, see, I liked the Muto, so they were entertaining me until Godzilla got to the picture. Other movies, you don't see Godzilla till the end or the middle. There's another monster that he's going to fight that's already made landfall and is causing destruction that keeps your attention, that keeps you engaged, because those stories were not that great, or they were goofy. This movie is missing even the goofy entertainment factor, obviously, because they were in a very serious tone. There's no other monster to keep you company because this is a solo Godzilla film. So you're left with characters and a story, and both of them tank, in my opinion. They both tank. So moving on to Godzilla. And I know this is going to be a long review because I'm already at 10 minutes and there's still some other things I want to cover, so bear with me. Godzilla, his final form, I liked it. The CGI is not there yet. But he obviously had the best scenes in the movie. Obviously, one of the best is when he finally erupts with his atomic weapon. You know, and I say erupt because multiple things happen. But I want to talk about his first two forms. I don't like them. I think it's goofy. I think that they could have done either without it, or they could have gone a different path. There's something about change, and when you change, there has to be a purpose behind it. Changing for the sake of changing doesn't make any sense. And him having these two forms, while it coincided with the story, they could have went a different way because it did not look good to me. It did not. Like, yeah, it was kind of grotesque, but it looked goofy. It just looked so goofy. And it's so hard because everything surrounding when he first touches landfall is incredible. You know, the scenes, the destruction are some really good scenes. But my God, this thing coming out and hopping like, I'm like, what is this? You know, I'm thinking they could have gone a different route. You know, maybe, you know, we see Godzilla Jr., right? I mean, nothing like goofy, like, I don't say Godzilla Jr. is goofy, but something similar to that. He comes out and he's basically hopping along. He's got these gills that he bleeds from. Then he evolves to another form. And then he gets up and then he takes off. And then later on he comes back in his final form. But those first two forms are just so goofy looking. It's just so ridiculous. The destruction and the way they shot it, fantastic. But I really was disengaged when I saw, what I saw. Because I'm like, holy shit, this is bad. The other thing is, one of his best scenes is the scene where he finally first uses his atomic breath. And this one's a catch-22 for me. It's a double-edged sword because on one hand, I was in awe. I was like, wow. But on the other hand, I just do not like the laser beams out the back. It just looks so fucking ridiculous. And what's worse is you guys have seen the pictures, okay? But when you see him in action, he's actually kind of... it almost looks like he's trying to aim them. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then later on, you see the tail with the tail beam and all that stuff. That comes later. But his scenes are very minimal. You know what I mean? Like, if you've seen pictures and you've seen all the clips that have come out by now, I'm sorry, I feel like I got something in my eye. I see it, but it's like I can't get rid of it. If you've seen all the clips and the pictures by this point, you've probably seen all his scenes already. It's really not that much. It's really not that much. And the worst part is after a point where he uses his breath, he goes into the state. And he stays in the state, story-wise, in the story for like 14 days. And that's pretty much when the movie dipped downhill for me, because you just have Godzilla standing there or in this catatonic state, and that's it. Then you get to the last point where he finally wakes up. They provoke him again to use his breath so they can freeze him and knock this building on him, so he gets taken down, and it's just unfortunate. Now, on the plus side, I'm very happy that Toho did this movie, though, and I'm very happy in the style that they did it, because it shows that they're kind of breaking away from the traditions a little bit, which is fine. And it's funny because Toho actually made the movie I was hoping they would make, a heavy CGI Godzilla, a different take on that. I was very, very much fine with the design. The beady eyes and the arms still gets to me a little bit, but for the most part, it was okay. It was fine. I had no problem with the design at all. But those subtle changes, the two forms, the laser beams out the back and the tail, it's just unnecessary, and it looks ridiculous. In my opinion, it looks ridiculous. And they just didn't need to do it. They didn't need to do it. If you want to make it purple, that's fine. And if you want his back to light up purple when he shoots it, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the laser beams in the back, there's just no need for it. You know, the little creature version of him coming out and hopping along Japan while he's crushing people, there's just no need for it. And if you're gonna do that, I would just think go a different route. You know, it just looks so horrible. It does. It looks so horrible. And I know people are gonna argue, well, it's meant to look that way. It's his first form. No. When I say horrible, I mean it looks goofy. It takes me personally out of the scene because he looks like a fucking goofball. It looks like this big. It looks like a half. You know, it's funny. People said Turkeyzilla. It looks like half a turkey, and he lost his body, so he's kind of hopping. So it just is so bad. So and in terms of, I mean, there's a lot of things that go down. You know, with the government trying to stop him, the Americans get involved. And you know, if you're a heavy American person, a lot of patriotism, you might get offended by this movie because they make the Americans look a little bit. They make the American military and their government look very dumb. And I'm not saying they're not. I just don't think they're as dumb as they were portrayed in this movie. You know, and they made it seem like America's first course of action is to go ahead and drop a nuke. And I just don't think that's true when you consider our military history at this point. Ever since Nagasaki and Hiroshima, we've actually been very reluctant. We won't get rid of our missiles. I mean, that's obviously a problem, but I think we're more or less reluctant to go to that. And I think America, while I think they would have eventually suggested a nuke on Godzilla, I think they would have went other directions before they went to that route. And in this movie, they kind of go to that route fast. Now, to be fair, every country depicts other countries and other races in a certain way in their movies. So we've done it to Japan, we've done it to others, so fair is fair. But yeah, if you're a hardcore patriot person, you probably won't like that. There's not much else. You know, there's little tidbits and details, and we can talk about that in one of my next live stream Monday night if you guys want to get into details. I think I even gave away probably too much, but I figure by now people have seen. It seems to me a lot of people have seen the pictures, have seen the thing about Godzilla. That's what they really want to know about. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but if you're super excited about seeing Godzilla action, you're not going to see very much of it here. When you do see it, it's good. Even I gotta admit, even the scene where he looks goofy, everything outside of that is cool. It's shot. The destruction level is incredible, but it's just very little. It's very little. I can't sit here and just say the movie's great because Godzilla had these epic scenes. It's not. It's not a great movie. But it's not the worst Godzilla movie. That's for sure. It's definitely not the worst. It's in there. It's in the middle. I would say middle of the pack, maybe a little bit higher. Maybe top 10. Maybe in the top 10. Definitely not in my top 5. It just was too boring. It was too many gaps. Some of the story just drug out too long. And it doesn't resonate with me because I wasn't there during the event. There's no character for me to cling on to and to root for. There's just none of that. It's just very bland. It's a very bland movie. It's like, you know, I said this in the Nation once. I said, it's like being served a juicy steak that's well done and not seasoned. You know, like somebody serves you a steak, it looks good, you cut into it, it's brown in the middle instead of pink, and there's no seasoning on it. I would describe that movie like this. Like, I would describe Shin Gojira like that. You know what I mean? Now, one more thing I'm going to cover, because this is a common question that's already arising, and I kind of want to settle this question now because I've actually seen the movie. Is this the strongest Godzilla to date? And no, absolutely not. By far the weakest Godzilla. I know a lot of people are talking about, oh my God, the beam, and it cuts through buildings and blah, 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 blah. The beam is an atomic beam. It's not a laser. It appears to cut through buildings because it's a very focused fire, but that's really no different than any of Godzilla's other breath. You know, if this Godzilla takes his beam and shoots it at a building straight without moving around, it's going to go right through. Same thing with any other Godzilla's breath. The difference with this one is that he actually blows it and he kind of moves around while he's, like, he doesn't stop, move, and then blow again and stop moving. He just blows it and then moves around, and it gives that laser look, but it's not really a laser. It's his radiation breath, and even afterwards, in the aftermath, when the scientists and stuff came to study, like the buildings and stuff, they found high levels of radiation. So it's not a laser beam. I call it a laser light show because of the back, which is ridiculous. And it's funny because it looks cool. Don't get me wrong. The scene is very, very well done. It's too much. This does not need to be that many projectiles going on. We've seen Godzilla face a military and wreck a city all in one sitting with just his atomic breath. So there's really no need for back beams and all that other shit. So I would say this. Any monster he fights, okay, at this point, there's really been no monster that Godzilla has fought that even one shot from his beam can destroy it. I think maybe he did it once to Ghidorah's middle head. He had to shoot Destroyer a couple of times before he killed Destroyer. So assuming that Godzilla uses his power, Shin Gojira, and he hits a monster, okay, and the monster takes the blow, but he's okay, Godzilla shuts down for 2 weeks. Any monster in Toho, any monster in America, any monster anywhere around the world will pepper the shit out of Shin Gojira while he's catatonic for 2 weeks like this. Okay, they will pepper him. So I wouldn't even put this Godzilla in any versus discussion. There really is no competition. Unless you're going to put him up against like a Moth, and not Mothra. I'm talking about Little Moth. Outside of that, any monster will kick his ass. Any monster. Any iteration of Godzilla, Gamera, you name it. Any monster will kick the shit out of Shin Gojira because it takes 2 weeks for him to get into a fight. And I tell you right now that he's not doing melee. He's not doing melee with those big ass hips. He's not doing melee with those little ass arms. And he makes all the other Godzillas look like they're running a sprint. So, yeah, I wouldn't put this Godzilla in any kind of versus discussion. It's not happening. It's not happening. Even if he shoots his beam, there's a chance he misses. And even if he does hit, Toho has told us that the other monsters can endure the blast. They can endure this blast. It's not as it's devastating, but it's devastating to a city, okay? And they're just showing it in a different light. He doesn't shut his mouth when he's blowing up the city. He moves around while he has the shit coming out of his mouth the whole time. So that's why it looks like a laser, like it's going back and forth. Just picture Godzilla with his regular breath doing the same thing, and you get the same reaction. It's just a big beam that doesn't go away, and it just follows him wherever he goes. But the traditional, or I shouldn't say traditional, but the original Godzilla doesn't do that. He blows his breath, steps back, aims somewhere else, blows it again. This one just keeps his mouth open. So, but that's it. Oh my God, it's a long video. That's it. One more thing I want to say too is, I don't know where some of the other fans are going to be with this. I'm very happy overall though with the movie because people who thought they were getting a traditional movie are not getting one. And it's not that I have anything against tradition. I don't. But I like to see change. And even though I'm not crazy about this movie, even though it's not the best Godzilla movie in the world, it shows that Toho is changing. And I like that. I like the fact that they're going in a different direction. They're trying to change things up. But I don't know where a lot of fans are going to go, whether you're a Toho purist or whatever. I don't know where you guys are going to go because this is not anywhere close to a traditional Godzilla movie. They tried to recreate or that theme of 54, and in some areas it works, but in other areas it does not. They try too hard to make him scary. That's the problem. They tried to, with all these beams and the first form and the blood coming out of this shit, they just try too hard. So I would say if you want anything close to a traditional Godzilla movie, either watch all the old ones or watch Godzilla 2014, because this one is nowhere near traditional. They try to do that in some areas and they succeed, but for the most part, this is not a traditional Godzilla movie by far. Outside of that, I mean, you guys will be able to see it in a couple of weeks, I would assume. Maybe it'll drop online or we have to wait till November, whatever. But you guys are all going to see it. You'll make your own judgment. Overall, I thought it was mediocre at best, if not lower. The excitement, I think, is going to get people riled up, but I predict about a year from now, people will start saying the same thing. Happens with every movie. It happened with the Avengers. It happened with Godzilla 2014. I guarantee it's going to happen with this movie. People will love it, and a year later, we'll kind of look back and say, wow, that movie wasn't that great. It's going to happen. I already know it is. But I still think the positive thing to take out of this is that Toho is trying something new. They're going a different direction, and I'm excited to see what they have planned for the future. if they decide to do more movies. So, but anyway, guys, that's it for this long-ass review, 25 minutes. I'm very sorry, but thank you for sticking around if you did. And we'll talk more Shin Gojira throughout the week. I also have 30 for 30 that I got to finish, or continue, I should say. I'm nowhere near finished, but I'm going to continue it. Had some internet issues last week, and I had some plans to do stuff this weekend. And honestly, I got caught up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I pretty much watched it for 14 hours straight. And that's pretty much what ruined doing more videos this weekend. But there are coming this week. We'll be back to normal schedule this week. I'll be online tomorrow night, 9:30. If you guys want to talk about it some more while I play something. I don't know what I'm going to play yet, but... All right, guys, that's it for this video. This is Rob signing off for E.T.N, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Take it easy.
Thank you for watching E.T.N. You can follow E.T.N on Facebook, Twitch, or Twitter, or join the Nation Facebook page. Don't forget to click that subscribe button on your way out.